Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
Now, historic films made in the spring of 1948 and just released show Eniwetok preparing for heavily guarded and still largely secret tests of new atomic weapons. The test's purpose is to measure atomic effects on thousands of different materials, 30,000 tons of them, not, as at Bikini, to prove military effectiveness.
San Francisco police say that 9 persons have been arrested in a narcotics raid on the headquarters of the Grateful Dead, a widely popular singing group. 2 members of the group, Rod McKernan and Robert Weir, and their business manager, Danny Rifkin, have been booked on suspicion of possessing narcotics. 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
We got a roll program. Neil Armstrong reporting their roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading. I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Well, strange lights are causing a viral buzz on YouTube. Could we have caught extraterrestrial activity on a recent newscast? Brandon Arroyo investigates.
As the newscast ended, the controversy began back on September 26th. What is that light shining in the back of the dark night sky?
With coverage reaching all the way back to 1948, for over 70 years, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Now, Fate Magazine Radio is carrying on that tradition of setting the standard in paranormal talk radio as we report and discuss some of the most mysterious and perplexing phenomena imaginable in this strange world of ours. Now, here is your host of Fate Magazine Radio, Kat Hobson.
Good evening. Welcome to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. You are listening to Fate Mag Radio. We are the online voice of Fate Magazine, and I am Kat Hobson, your host. I am so thrilled, as everyone knows, to be part of Fate, and my guest tonight also has a connection. And, I'm very excited to be able to welcome Dave. Before we do get started, I would like to mention a loss that our network has suffered, and it's actually the entire paranormal community. That's whether you are into spiritual paranormal or cryptozoology, lake monsters. Kevin Malik, who with his wife Jennifer host Paraversal Universe Radio, has been my friend for quite some time. We started out together on the same network at about the same time, and I just counted him as my friend for so long. Jennifer is a dear friend as well, and we lost Kevin this week. I'm saying I'm a lot. It's a difficult subject. I just wanted to make sure that his family knows that we love them and we support them, and we will be doing a tribute here to Kevin, and we will give details on that as they come up. And I want to thank all of the people in the community who have reached out to me personally wanting to participate in that. And the different networks that he and Jennifer's show have been on are going to be participating as well. And there is a GoFundMe account to help with costs incurred relevant to this. And I will post that on the network page, WBHM-DB on Facebook. But for right now, if you could just please keep Jennifer and his family in your prayers and send them comfort and love, I would really appreciate that. These are wonderful people. Now, on to the show for tonight. I am so fortunate. He keeps telling me thanks. I keep telling him thanks. We've got kind of a mutual admiration thing going here. But I am very excited to be able to welcome Dave Spinks to our show tonight. He is someone that I got to meet through the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. And I'm so glad I did. He's been investigating and researching the supernatural for 30 years, over 30 years. And he is someone that I think, right at 30, but he is someone I think has a lot of background to share with people. He has written books. He has covered just about everything. He's done investigations in the U.S. He has been investigating in Europe. He participates on television and film. He just did The Flatwoods Monster, A Legacy of Fear for Small Town Monsters. I'm so excited about that. I love The Flatwoods Monster. In fact, Andrew Smith was one of my first guests, if y'all remember, when I first started doing Fate, and he curates the Flatwoods Monster Museum. So he's pretty amazing too. He has been on In Search of Monsters on travel. He's been on the UnXplained on history. He's been on Paranormal 911 and These Woods Are Haunted on travel. And he's been on Terror in the Woods. I think is that Destination America? I am not positive.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, and then we can go on and on and on with his books. We can talk about Willow's Weep, and we will. And, you know, Dave Spinks, thank you so much for being here with me.
Hey, my pleasure. You know, it's great. I love talking about the paranormal, all aspects of it, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Well, I enjoyed getting to talk with you face to face, and I think that you're a perfect fit for Fate Magazine Radio because you cover all aspects of the paranormal. You do ufology, you do the supernatural, you do you do everything. The cryptid side, and I think that that's fantastic. So few people seem to comprehend that all of these go hand in hand. They're all paranormal.
Yeah, I think they're all interconnected in some aspects, you know, so that's why I do what I do. And I've had, you know, several experiences that started me out in this, and more experiences later on investigating these things and so on and so forth. So the more investigating you do and the more research you do, you realize a lot of these events and a lot of these things have a lot of similarities and are actually interconnected in some various ways or shape or form, you know. So it's a no-brainer to me to investigate and research all these topics as much as possible. You know, obviously you could spend a lifetime on one haunting case, but you know, I just delve into all of it, or as much as I can, you know, as time allows, because it's very time consuming.
Well, it is, if you're going to do it right. And
yeah,
and you do. So
I try.
You do.
Right or wrong, you know, I try to present as much real evidence as possible, I try to look at it from a law enforcement officer standpoint, so to speak. And, there's really no right or wrong way, doing this stuff, but to try to back it up with factual results is really hard. And, a lot of times when you do these things, you're left with way more questions than answers. It's just the nature of the whole paranormal game.
I find that to be true too. I've done some investigating, not as much as you, obviously, but there are different locations that just seem to pull me in because of the experiences that I have there. And I try to go back and document, see if I can get the same individuals communicating, see what's going on. And, I have some concerns on occasion because no matter what tool you're using, whether it's yourself or a recorder or a device of some other type, you genuinely don't know who you're communicating with.
Right.
So there are some things that give you pause.
Yeah, there's a lot of times, I've been on these investigations and something will seem to be mimicking a little girl, but in reality, it's not really a little girl. It's something mimicking a little girl, because what better way to gain people's trust to portray yourself as a helpless little girl, and a lot of these real negative type of hauntings, you seem to find that more and more in a lot of these cases. So, it's a way for something to get a foothold with your sense of wanting to help a little innocent child, and, you let your guard down and whatnot. And that's just one example of many different scenarios you can run into.
It's a strong example. I've seen that happen.
Mm-hmm. And it happens. Even some of the most famous cases, like, look at the Sally house, where the Pickmans were, Tony was attacked, and, he was drawing these pictures of a little girl. He had seen this little girl, and it was a very negative type haunting and whatnot. And that's just another example. You never know what you're dealing with when you're doing this stuff, and it can be dangerous.
It can be dangerous. People forget that sometimes. It's important.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not all fun and games when it comes to this stuff. I've been attacked numerous times over the years, scratched, and had some really crazy stuff happen that I couldn't explain how it happened and what did it to me. But we had a good idea, but you can't. Nothing's 100% in the paranormal. You kind of have to formulate what you think's going on and go with it from there. And take your best guess, so to speak, with what transpired, how it all transpired, and that's the way you got to look at it.
Well, I know that you started doing this officially in 1986. That's a long time to be doing this work.
If you want to call it that, Kat, I was just kind of feeling my way through, because I saw the show after my experience, and I knew that, hey, other people around the world had seen what I saw, and I wanted answers, and I saw them doing EVPs and stuff. Of course, everyone knows who Hans Holzer is. And I happened to have a tape recorder, almost exactly like his that I had gotten for Christmas. Had the little plug-in mic, and you hold it. And I used to record the radio for music, on it. Right. And I said, hey, I can do that. So that's how I kind of started feeling my way through the paranormal, and moving through life. And I got my first EVP at a place called Mesa Verde. And I got Native American chanting and drumming, and it blew me away. And I was really hooked on the paranormal investigating side after that for a long, long time. I was like, holy cow, this stuff really works. And you can actually,
yes. That was my reaction.
And you can capture stuff that's not there, and it's just amazing.
We had, we were actually leading a public event at a grist mill here in Alabama, And when we got out there was a covered bridge, and we went past the covered bridge going towards the creek, and we got audible to the ears drumming.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my friends was live listening, and I was like, well, let me hear that. And so, yeah, that whole experience went south quickly because I decided, well, I'm just going to shine my light over there and see if there's, living humans there. And nope. But when the light hit that area, the drumming stopped and they started coming toward us. So that was a lesson in, what not to do. And how are you going to get all of these people that paid to be here out? So, yeah, it was interesting and something I will never forget. What was the experience that you had with your grandpa that actually got you started?
Well, that was back in '83. I was 13 years old, and I would, my mom and dad were divorced when I was little. So my stepdad, he was in the Air Force, and we actually had gotten transferred out west to New Mexico. But both sides of my family were still here in West Virginia. So I would always come back in the summers and during hunting season to spend time with both sets of my grandparents and my dad and everybody. And on this particular time, I was with my dad's dad, and we were going to one of our favorite fishing spots here on the Gauley River. And we would, when we would go, we'd usually spend 2 or 3 days out there and camp and fish and have a good time, and we went to fish that particular weekend, and we encountered what I can only describe as a Sasquatch, and it was throwing big giant rocks at us, big rocks like a normal man could not even it would have a hard time picking this rock up, let alone throwing it 30 yards or more, so it was very hair-raising experience. It scared the crap out of me. I was a young man. And, I've told that story on Terror in the Woods and These Woods Are Haunted. Mm-hmm. And I also wrote about it in my West Virginia Bigfoot book. And really from that time on, after that crazy experience, it changed me. And I wanted answers, like I was telling you a few minutes ago. I wanted answers as to what it was I saw. And my grandfather, he was a World War II medic, and he was on the beaches at Normandy, so you can imagine what he saw. Nothing scared this man, and he was scared, and he told, and the story goes, when he ran to me in the truck, and he picked me up with one arm and slung me through the driver's side of the truck cab, and the only thing that stopped me was the passenger door.
Oh, my gosh. So y'all were getting some gone.
Yeah, and he jumped in the truck. He said, "We're getting out of here, boy. That's not of God." And we peeled out of there, bottoming and out the truck, going. It was like a 3-mile trek up out of the woods to the hardtop. And I got my head buried in my hands thinking we're going to die because the truck's going to break down and this thing's going to get us. But thankfully it was on the other side of the river. Now, in the show, they added stuff that didn't happen. And they kind of twisted some stuff around, but that's TV for you. They do that. They think they need to make it scarier when they don't, because it was scary enough. But we drove around for quite some time, and he didn't say a word. And once we got on the hardtop road, and he finally pulled over and said, and he was a Baptist minister at this time for 40 years after the war, and he said, "Son, we better not tell anybody about this because they're going to think we're crazy." And I kept my word. I never talked about it, but I still wanted answers. So back in those days, we didn't have the luxury of the internet or anything like that. So I had to go and research through the local libraries and the school libraries. And little by little, I started coming across different books and magazine articles about people around the world seeing a similar type creature. And I knew, hey, okay, I'm not nuts. I really saw what I thought I saw. And it's not only here, but it's all over the friggin' world.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, of course, the show In Search Of, with the old show In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy back in the day, I got to see the Bigfoot episode, and I saw all the other ones with Han Holzer and everybody else, and I was hooked. I was really like, wow, I want to do that, because it's kind of like, and it's kind of my motto today. It's 3 of man's greatest questions. What happens to us when we die? are we alone in the universe, and are there unknown creatures walking among us? And I believe, yeah, all that, you know. So, you know, it's really changed me. And, you know, my grandpa was pretty hardcore old school Baptist minister. So whenever I would try to approach him with questions about these things, he said, nope, don't talk about that, boy, you're messing with demons. So it was very frustrating to me, because back in those days, you didn't talk about this kind of stuff in public because it was taboo.
Yes,
you know,
it was.
They'd be like, don't talk about that stuff. You're going to bring it upon yourself, or, you know, or they look at you like you're crazy, or, you know, because people are scared of the unknown. They're scared to death of it. And there's there's a lot of unanswered questions out there. You know, I try to explain to people, look, they find new species of animals on this planet almost daily. You know, the giant squid was thought to be a myth, and they proved it really exists.
Yes.
You know, one example of hundreds. You know, I mean, it wasn't that long ago they found the mountain gorilla.
Yes.
Unknown species. Just 2 years ago, they found a completely new species of orangutan in Sumatra. So, you know,
I was going to say that because that's my favorite.
Yeah. So if you look at all, you have to have a mind, though. You know, if you don't have an open mind, or you've never had an experience, I can understand that you might say, well, people are nuts, they're on drugs, they're seeing stuff that's not there. But let me, you know, from firsthand, you know, you've got reports from all walks of life, doctors, lawyers, police officers, military personnel, astronauts, of all these things. And if you don't take that into consideration, you're doing yourself a disservice, because you're taking people that really have something to lose by coming out in the public and sharing these types of experience, whether it be, you know, a Bigfoot type creature, or a UFO experience, or an abduction experience, or anything of the sort. If you don't take into account some of the folks that are relaying this information, you're doing yourself a disservice, because there's stuff out there that we don't understand, and it's happening.
It is. And with that, we're going to take our first break of the evening. We'll be right back.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Several U.S. presidents are on record talking about the UFO mystery.
Yeah, Presidents Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan both had UFO sightings of their own, but the current presidential campaign might be the first in which UFO disclosure has been championed by a major party candidate.
DIA, CIA, it moves around, is operating a program to train psychic spies to spy and use their powers against Russia. John Ronson writes about this in The Men Who Stare at Goats.
The first known sighting of a ghost took place right after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated in the late 1860s during the administration of Ulysses Grant.
Project Paperclip, Clinton releases it all in 1998.
Possibly the unequal cooling of its surface.
I say, do you still think it's a meteor, Professor?
I don't know what to think. The metal casing is definitely extraterrestrial.
It's a place where UFO hunters and scientists gather to examine paranormal activity in the region.
Some of the documents, this is bringing Nazi scientists into the United States to work here. So we fought against the Nazis, and it's not, this again is not a revelation. As early as 1947, 1946, we knew some of this, right?
On the paranormal, will we see U.S. President Barack Obama's foreign policy go intergalactic in a quest for gold stolen by aliens? We'll tell you at least how the White House responded to claims the chief executive has been teleporting to Mars. So let's get to today's Capitol account.
UFOs, hauntings, psychic abilities, conspiracy, ESP, cryptozoology. There are many things that remain unexplained in the inexplicable world around us. and we're talking about them here, looking for answers. On WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama. The truth is out there.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. I am Kat Hobson, your host, with my guest, Dave Spinks. And we have been having a great discussion already. And I keep saying that one of these days somebody's going to start recording the conversations during the breaks. But again, not going to be me. Because I would hate to have to give that up just because I wanted to record it one day. So, welcome back, Dave. We were talking about your experiences, and I had mentioned that we have people in chat who had caught that episode. One of them is a hiking out in the woods kind of person who has gotten some interesting photographs. But I am interested to know, we're going to have to cover Willow's Weep. We've got questions already over in the Spreaker chat about that. And you've got so much information, this is going to have to be multiple shows to get even through half of it. But what would you like to go to next? I'm going to let you make that call.
You mean a topic?
A topic. I mean, we were just talking about the new species being discovered, and, you know, the orangutan really caught my attention because I love primates. But...
Well, it's all fascinating stuff. You know, how much of the ocean on our own planet has been explored? Hardly anything. It's hard to tell what is under our ocean, especially, you know, you hear all these accounts from submarine or military personnel that they're tracking objects moving at unknown speeds underneath the ocean. And then all of a sudden it pops out of the, you know, from underneath the water and flies off into space. I mean, you know, that's some fascinating stuff. Where's that coming from? You know?
Well, you know, you brought up In Search Of in the first segment, and one of my friends was on the first episode of the new In Search Of, and he was talking about that. He was on a sub, and they had a fast mover, as they call it, come by, and it was astounding. So
yeah, and they just got to log it and keep on going. Don't even talk about it.
They don't talk about it. They log it and trash it.
That's right. That's crazy. I mean, so, you know, it's something like 80-something% of the oceans in the world have not even been explored yet, and it's hard to tell what other creatures are down there. You know, what other possibly aliens are down there. You know, we don't know. So there's a ton more to discover on this planet. You know, and it's all fascinating stuff to me. And that doesn't even take into account all the metaphysical stuff that they're uncovering. Also, recently science has proven that there are alternate dimensions that run parallel with ours. Is some of this stuff popping in and out of their dimension into ours and vice versa? I mean, what's going on with all this stuff, you know? So, you know, it's fascinating stuff, all of it, and that's why I do what I do.
Well, you know, I have had an experience, and more than once, different locations, where prior to having a paranormal experience, it appears to be like a heat shimmer coming toward me. And, you know, indoors, in air conditioning, but it looks like a heat shimmer, like when you're out in a parking lot or something. Right. And that would lead me to believe that there was some sort of like glitch in the matrix type moment occurring, but it's not every time I have an experience. This happened twice. So I think that perhaps there is some cross passaging.
Yeah. Or was that a possible entity manifesting in front of you, you know? Who knows?
The first time was two of them trying to, I think, because you could actually feel the temperament. And it did not feel like it wanted to be my friend.
Right.
And that is something that I can recognize.
I see that a lot myself, and I see like that shimmering thing out of the corner of my eyes, or sometimes sometimes directly in front of me. I don't know what that is or anything, but it's kind of freaky. I mean, I don't know if I've really had a paranormal experience right after that, but I do see the shimmering sometimes. What is that? Is that some spirit that's coming through or manifesting, or what is that? I don't know, but I have had that experience numerous times myself. And I think personally, after doing this stuff for so many years, that you become more in tune to it, so to speak. And the spirits know that, the entities know that, and they will be more apt to communicate with you. Because, me and my friends like David Weatherly and stuff, we talk about this stuff all the time. There'd be, for me, just, one example would be you're in a location, and this has happened to all of us at one time or another. You're getting some really good EVPs, or you're having a really good spirit box session, getting some good communication coming through, and then some Joe Blow or whoever walks into the room and everything stops.
Yes.
What is that? Is that his energy? They don't like his energy. What is that? We don't know, but it happens more times than not. And that's one of the cool things you try to take a look at. Well, why did all the activity stop when Joe over there came in the room? Why did that happen? So it's kind of interesting. If you got to look at, you kind of got to look outside the box, looking in, think of different ways to try to communicate with these things. Try different things, old school methods, new equipment methods, new technology. It all can work hand in hand together. And then we have multiple things going on at once with, say, old school styles and the new tech, and you've got all that stuff going down at once. Then you can compile all that and say, wow, we were getting this going on. We had a car. One of the old school methods we used to use is put a toy car or a toy and draw a circle around it with chalk and see if the car would out of the circle or anything would happen like that. And then you'd measure it with some of the new devices. You can put all that stuff together, try new methods, new techniques, and mix it all together, old school, new school, and it's fascinating stuff when you actually get things to happen.
Well, it is. I find it fascinating when you're at a location that's known for having like child spirits. I do not like investigating with children. I just think that that's putting them in harm's way. We don't know what we're interacting with, and that's just my own personal feeling on that. But
I don't.
Other people do not feel that way, and I have investigated with people that brought their children to investigations. And in one instance, the child had brought her toys and was playing with them and was getting interaction through the toys.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, that's pretty cool. Okay. Not my kid. I didn't make that choice, but it was interesting. But again, you don't know who you're talking to.
Exactly. And my whole thing on that is, hey, if the parents want to take them and they, it's they're letting it happen, then so be it. But if I'm running a public investigation where I'm having people investigate with me, I do not allow anyone over or under 18. Now, my son, he is interested somewhat, so I will, I've taken him to some mundane locations and stuff and let him do a little ghost box session and just show him how it's done. But that's my person. I know what, I can consider myself, I know what I'm doing, even though, it could be, it still could be risky, but, it's all personal preference,
It is.
You don't want to take, kids to a notoriously dark locations like Bobby Mackey's or something crazy like that, or Waverly Hills, or, you just, but, here's the thing, you can get an attachment anytime. I've known people that were not even into the paranormal, were walking through a graveyard or somewhere, and the next thing you know, they have an attachment. It's just, it is what it is. Sometimes those things just happen, and they have to go get cleansed and everything. So when you And I often tell people too, when we get back on the topic of this possibly being dangerous at times, when you go to a place and you're provoking and you're doing certain things, be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it.
Yes. I would totally agree with that. I have an experience that I managed to tick off a whole structure of spirits at one time. And not even on purpose. I don't provoke. And the whole building was just going bananas. And you don't know what you're going to get. And sometimes it's not even because you're being a dipstick. It just, something will cause a problem.
Yeah. Or if you have or something there is very negative and is seeking to cause problems. You just never know what you're going to run into. Each location is different. It can also be different each different time you go there.
Yes.
If a particular location has some type of portal open, then anything in its brother can come in and leave as it wants. What's going on. So, you're talking about a place that might have 100 different layers of things going on. Peel it back like an onion, all these different layers, you're never going to get to the bottom of it, so like I said, each place is different, and you got to tread lightly in some cases.
Well, we have a question for you, and that is, how often have you found, like quantifying, how often have you found that the spirit was not really a child when you were told it was?
Well, a lot of this falls on your personal belief system. I think, I think for me anyway, I think most child spirits, they're the most innocent thing out there. And I think they go to where they need to go pretty quickly. Now, that doesn't mean that all of them do that, but, in some cases I have found, and especially the negative type hauntings, that these things will portray themselves as a little girl, show themselves as a little girl, and people are getting scratched violently and all this other stuff, so I couldn't really put a number on it, but I'd say in a lot of the cases I've done, it's been pretty high that it was not actually a little girl that was there. It was something much, much worse.
I just think that there's a degree of guile that these entities can use. And again,
well, they're like people. Kat.
They are like people.
If they were a butthole in life, they're most likely going to be a butthole in death. And
totally agree.
And they like, some of them like to scare people. Some of them like to try to intimidate. Some of them like to scratch you. But on the flip side of that, imagine how frustrating this would be. Say if you die, you died and you're stuck in your house for whatever reason, or you don't want to leave, you're in your house, and then your house is sold off to these new people or whatever. They come in, they're changing it the way they want, and you're there and you're like, what? And you might not even know you're dead.
Yeah.
Right. So you're sitting there saying, what are you doing to my house? And you're yelling and screaming at these people, and they're paying no attention to you. Like, they can't even hear you or see you. You can see them, but they can't hear or see you. So that would be enraging if you think about it. People are coming in, changing your home, and so you're lashing out at them, and somehow you manage to put a scratch on them or something. Doesn't mean that you're attacking them. You're trying to get their attention. Why can't you hear me? Or
yes.
Why? So, you got to look at it, like I said, from outside the box, look at different angles of everything, and try to figure out what's actually going on here. It's very tough. It's a hard thing to try to do. And like I said earlier in the show, you can spend years on one case and trying just to figure out what you're dealing with to try to help that spirit cross over, or whatever the case may be, or get rid of it if it's some negative type of entity. And when I say negative entity, that means I'm talking about an entity that something that has never had a human soul, is not a human. It's something else. I don't do crossover or, crossing over or anything like that. I call in people I know, that are specialized in that stuff. I basically what I do is I try to document paranormal evidence and evidence that I cannot be, things that cannot be explained that are occurring. And then I turn it over to other folks. I can do some of that stuff, but I just choose to hand that over to other people, whether it be clergy or people that specialize in that type of field. So, I usually give people some things they can do to quell any type of activity and then move on, So, but, there's just some real nasty stuff out there that we don't understand what they're doing, why they're doing it. And, there's stuff out there with possible ETs.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are starting to talk more and more about some of these ETs that are portraying themselves as demonic looking creatures in order to manipulate people or control people's minds. So it's pretty fascinating stuff there and scary at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's pretty scary too, because I don't think that they need to pretend to be anything negative. They're going to trip you out when you see them anyway. Right. And I would love to have a positive experience. I mean, I have seen things, but I have not interacted that I'm aware of. So, but to consider the fact that you don't know what you're dealing with. It's, right. We have questions, but we're going to have to go to chat here in a minute. Go to break here in a minute, so we'll save that. A good question.
That's the biggest thing, we don't know exactly what we're dealing with. We don't know if it's angelic, demonic, ET, if it's ET, human spirits. We don't know 100% for sure. We can do our best guesstimate based off some things you can try, but it's kind of like trial and error type of situation, trying to cleanse a place or get rid of it or document exactly what it is.
Right.
Of course, you have to debunk everything and make sure it's not some type of natural cause, like in a haunted house with scratching. Of course, you got to check the walls, make sure there's no possums or squirrels in there causing this, stuff like that. You got to debunk all of that stuff before you can even begin to say it's paranormal in nature.
Well, because, you just don't want to have to go get that rabies shot. I don't know which I'd rather it be, honestly. But we've got another question, but we're about to go and take our second break, and then we'll get back to these questions. So, y'all, thanks for listening. We'll be back on the flip side.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. I'm Kat Hobson, your host, and my guest is Dave Spinks, and we are having the best conversation. Dave, we have some questions that we're going to get to if you're up for that. Are you ready?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Well, let's see. You're going to love this. We were talking about ETs and, maybe a false presentation on their part. And Sherry in chat said, have you ever seen anything alien? And what's your craziest experience ever while investigating, and where was it?
Well, as far as seeing anything alien, I've never seen a little green man, a gray, anything I could say was an alien, so to speak. In my, standing there looking at one is what I'm saying.
Right.
Now, I have one of my jobs when I was in the military was, on Air Force bases. And I grew up on Air Force bases before I was in the Air Force. So I pretty much know every single type of craft we have other than any black budget programs, that are top, super, super top secret that they don't show to the public. I've seen stuff in the sky that if we have something like that, it would be amazing. I've seen several objects in the sky that I could not say was anything we had that I knew of. Because just number one, the shape, the speed at which these things were moving and the maneuvers they did, there was no sound. And they shot straight up into space without making a sound. Now, something that's moving that fast would definitely create a sonic boom. And if there was any human pilots inside, 99.9% chance they would not survive those type of G-forces on those maneuvers those things were doing. It would kill them instantly. And so as far as that goes, if we have something like that, I would be amazed, because they'd be flying all over the place and we would take over the world. So, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just common sense.
Well, especially since Russia is now saying they have a hypersonic missile. It's like, yeah, we need that.
Yeah. So, it is what it is. Unless you see something like that, you can't really, it'd be hard to believe. But, like I said, there are astronauts coming out saying they've seen them. There are all walks of military personnel coming out saying they've seen them. And then you got to take into account all the people that have said they've been abducted over the years. Not every one of those people is crazy. I'm sorry. It's just not the numbers don't lie. Not everybody's crazy. So, you have to take a look at all that stuff. And my personal belief is we are and have been being visited by ETs for many thousands of years, if not millions.
Yeah.
On this planet. And, for all we know, like I said, we could be some kind of DNA project for them, some hybrid project. I mean, I don't know. And if you even look at the holiest, the holiest text in the world, the Bible, the Quran, all of them, they talk about ETs. Some of the most famous religious paintings show UFOs in the background shooting beams of light down.
You're correct. They do.
And then you go back even farther to Native American cave art that shows these beings. They drew what they saw, people. That's not something they made up in their mind. They drew what they saw because they felt it was important enough to leave a mark depicting what they saw. Okay? And they knew that stuff. They left it there for people to see. This is what I saw that day. Or whatever. You see many scenes of hunting, like buffaloes and stuff. It was an important day for them. They had a great hunt. Or they had this crazy experience where they saw these people that were not from this earth. Mm-hmm. And many Native American legends talk about these things. The
sky gods.
Yeah, and they believe they come, the Hopi, they talk about they come from the star people. They are part of the star people. So, if you take a hard look at this stuff, it makes perfect sense. It talks about, in the book of Ezekiel in the Bible, it talks about a fiery craft coming out of the ground. I mean, made out of metal and gears and everything else. So you got to look at that, folks. I mean, that's some crazy stuff if you think about it.
And, and it's not, as you said, it's not just one religious text.
Right. It's all of them.
Yes. Well, it's all the religious texts. It's an historical record.
Yep.
So
the talks about giants that walk the earth. They're finding more and more proof of that. So, there's giant skeletons that have been found all over the world. Some have double rows of teeth. Explain that.
And ours go to the Smithsonian and disappear.
Exactly.
Tell me there's not something bizarre in Denmark, right?
Exactly. Why? Because they don't want us to know. They don't want us to know the true history of this planet. They don't want us to know the history. They've covered it up because they want sheeple. They want people to be scared to death. If they do something wrong, they're going to burn in hell. They're going to go to hell. And they want to control you via religion and money and medical things and everything else. So people, that's why they're so, the government is so apt to cover up these things, because it's just one little more piece of the puzzle that might lead people to say, hey, there's something else out there, man. It's not just us. And
don't you think they're getting frustrated at this point because it's getting out?
Yeah, they've been drip feeding it to us for years, because I think they do feel that a lot of people will go nuts if they just come out and say, yeah, okay, aliens are real, and they've been visiting this planet for freaking eons. And
we got no idea how to stop that, but, they say they're not going to do anything bad. So...
And it would, some people would freak out. You hear stories of some of the guys that said they were part of these projects that went out and picked up alien craft.
The 20 plus 10?
Yeah, and he said, I saw guys, once they realized what they were looking at, they just stuck their M16 in their mouth and blew their head off, because everything they knew and thought was real, basically versus their religion, they realized it was all fake, and they couldn't handle it, and they killed themselves. So, and that would happen in some aspects, but I think now that through Hollywood and everything else, they've been slowly drip feeding this stuff to us. So who knows what's going to happen with disclosure and everything. I think it's a lot closer than people think, so hopefully with everybody that's pushing and has been pushing, I don't think we'll know the full extent of it for a long time, but at some point I think they're going to have to come out and say, yeah, because then also they have to admit they've been lying to us for who knows how long.
That's going to be the hard part.
Yep.
That's going to be where they face losing control.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And, I mean, just with things that we've watched over the last few years, they're all about control.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, nobody wants to let go of those, those reins. But we're going to get to the second part of Sherry's question after this one, because this is relevant to when you had talked about cleansings and clearings and having other people do those and such. But the other chat wants to know, what do you use to protect yourself when you investigate?
I use, I say prayers before and after. I use many different methods. Like there's been a few occasions where something was trying to attach to me, and I have had an attachment at one time, and I had some really bad stuff happen to me during this whole thing, and I went and got cleansed by a Catholic priest, a Baptist minister, and a shaman, and overnight everything turned around. So that just proved to me that something was really negative attaching to me and doing stuff, causing chaos in my life. And they can do this. I've seen it done to other people as well. I've known seasoned investigators and have been investigating for a long time that had to quit doing it because, they were for whatever reason, they were very susceptible to things, very bad things happening after investigations in their lives, and they gave it up, because
was
of that.
After an attachment?
Yeah.
That they were vulnerable after that point?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, whatever the reason, I don't know, but they had, they started having stuff happen again. So they just decided, it was best for them and their family to just quit doing it.
Right.
And and they'd been investigating for many years. So, I've seen a lot of people, people have actually died, from various things after paranormal investigations, whether it be some kind of black mold gets into their lungs from an old abandoned location or whatever. So it's, you have to be safe. And by all means, don't go out on any kind of investigation by yourself, because you could fall through a floor. You could
Absolutely.
be out, break your leg, and be stranded. And not to mention the paranormal aspect of everything. So, you just use common sense, be safe out there.
Well, I love the point that, hey, you shouldn't be going anywhere by yourself that you have to break into that's derelict. Because, we do not want to be known as ghost hunters like those people that burned down that mansion in Louisiana. That's not a ghost hunter. That's an idiot. Yeah. And a criminal. But trespassing is criminal.
Yes, it is.
And
it's not worth it,
No, it's not. I mean, you don't want to have to explain to somebody any of those situations.
No.
And Beverly,
thousands of places you can go. Thousands.
Yes. Beverly wants to know, how do you know you have an attachment?
Well, that's a good question. Well, the way I looked at it was, out of nowhere, all this negative, crazy stuff started happening in my life, health-wise, relationship-wise, and financially. And after this one certain investigation I did, where I actually lived in this place for over a month and investigated it 24/7 for the most part. And then I went back 2 more times for 2 weeks at a time. And right after all that happened, I found out I had cancer in my leg out of nowhere, had a bunch of financial issues going on, went through a really nasty divorce, stuff that was really just out of the blue. So I said, well, heck, maybe I have an attachment. So, and I was having these really bizarre dreams where I was surrounded by this really blackness, like blacker than black, and these arms would reach out of there and they were trying to grab me. And every night it seemed like they were getting a little bit closer, until finally one night, one of them grabbed a hold of my shoulder, and then I woke up and I noticed I had a tear in my sleeve on my t-shirt. And that's like, man, I bet, I got an attachment or something. So I went and got cleansed right away, and almost everything turned around overnight. So right. I knew then that, that's what was going on, because this place I was in was really, really nasty, really negative, a lot of really bad juju there. And I just came to that conclusion. Luckily, I just, for whatever, the light bulb went off in my head, and I took care of it, and everything turned around and cancer free and all that stuff. So I think it all worked out. So, and that was several years ago now. So,
well, I know that Sherry was like, wow, how long did you have that attachment?
Oh, this all took place very quickly. Like, it was a year or less that all these things happened. Just one right after another. Boom, boom, boom. And I was like, this is not normal. Something's not right. So, all that transpired within a year. I got cleansed by the 3 folks I told you about. And then it seemed like within a month, everything was back on track. And I was, so what's that tell you? I mean, there's no such thing
that you got it taken care of.
So.
Absolutely. And, we are getting ready to go to our top of the hour break, which is a great time to fill your tea glass or stein or coffee cup or whatever color Kool-Aid is yours tonight. And we will be back with Dave Spinks, and we will get to some more of these questions as well, because we've got to cover Willow's Weep. We cannot let you get out of here. That was the very first question of the night. And I know that that's going to take a little while, so I wanted to get that taken care of when we come back. So Everyone, enjoy this, and you know what? You never know. We may actually get a little good news today. I'm ever hopeful. May the odds be ever in our favor, right? So here we go. We'll catch you on the flip side.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Janine Herbst. In Texas, one person has died, another is in critical condition after a shooting inside a church in White Settlement, Texas, about 10 miles from Fort Worth. White Settlement Police Chief J.P. Bevering says the gunman entered the West Freeway Church of Christ during a service this morning.
The preliminary reports indicated that the man entered the church and fired a weapon. A couple of members of the church returned fire, striking the suspect, who died at the scene. Tragically, the person shot by the suspect died at a local hospital, and a second parishioner has life-threatening injuries.
He says, though, that there is no threat to the community. Jeff Williams with Texas Public Safety says this is happening too often.
Unfortunately, this country has seen so many of these that we've actually gotten used to it to this point.
So far, there is no word on a motive. The FBI is investigating what may have motivated a man to storm into a rabbi's house in Muncie, New York, stabbing 5 people during a Hanukkah gathering Saturday. As NPR's Bobby Allen reports, the governor of New York called the attack on the Orthodox Jewish community an act of domestic terrorism.
Members of Etia Gluck's family were at the rabbi's house Saturday night when they heard a knock on the door and saw a man they didn't recognize.
His shawl came up to his nose and his hoodie came down to his forehead.
Gluck says he was holding something large. They didn't know it was a knife at first.
They thought it was an umbrella. It was in the holder, like the storybooks.
The man barged in, stabbing and wounding 5 people on the 7th night of Hanukkah. The suspect has pleaded not guilty to 5 counts of attempted murder. He's being held in a local jail. President Trump called the attack, quote, horrific, saying, quote, we all must come together to fight, confront, and eradicate the evil scourge of anti-Semitism. Bobby Allen, NPR News.
The Pentagon says it carried out military strikes in Iraq and Syria, targeting a militia blamed for an attack last week that killed a U.S. civilian contractor at an Iraqi military base near Kirkuk, the first American to die in such an attack. NPR's Tom Bowman says the Iraqi government and the prime minister were notified before the strike.
The Pentagon said among the targets is in both Iraq and Syria include weapon storage facilities and command and control locations that the Pentagon says the group Kataib Hezbollah used to execute attacks on U.S. and coalition forces. This has really been a long time coming. The U.S. has said Iranian-backed militias have been mounting rocket and mortar strikes for months now.
NPR's Tom Bowman reporting. It's not clear if there were any casualties from the U.S. strike, but the Pentagon says U.S. military personnel could see, quote, significant secondary explosions from the weapons caches after the strikes. You're listening to NPR News from Washington. A popular herbicide continued to damage trees and crops in 2019. NPR's Dan Charles reports new training requirements were supposed to have solved the problem, but they didn't.
The herbicide called dicamba turned into a major headache for farming communities. Farmers are spraying it on new crops that have been genetically modified to tolerate it. But the chemical's been drifting into neighboring fields and woodlands, damaging vulnerable crops and trees. A year ago, the Environmental Protection Agency required new training courses for anybody who uses dicamba. But the problems continued, with more than 1,000 official reports of dicamba damage across the Midwest. And according to a survey in Missouri, most damage went unreported. This month, state officials asked the EPA whether continued use of a pesticide that regularly damages other plant life violates federal law. Dan Charles, NPR News.
At the weekend box office, Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker kept the top spot with an estimated $72 million in ticket sales. So far, the Disney film has made $362 million. In second place, Sony's Jumanji: The Next Level, with $35 million in its third weekend. That film has made $175 million since its opening. In third place, Greta Gerwig's remake of the American literary classic Little Women opened with $16 million, a good performance for a film with a smaller budget. Frozen 2 came in fourth with $16 million, and it has been a tough year. Box office revenue for the year so far is down around 4%. I'm Janine Herbst, NPR News in Washington.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour. Welcome back. You are listening to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. I am Kat Hobson, your host, and we are on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I am so fortunate to be able to bring you my guest tonight. We are having a great time. Dave Spinks knows so much information and is not shy about sharing it. He's written books. He's appeared on numerous television programs, and here he is with us tonight. How lucky are we? Welcome back, Dave.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, as usual.
Well, I'm just thrilled. I told you we were going to try to get some of these other questions, and then this may actually be part of it with what's the craziest experience you've ever had while investigating, and where was it?
Well, I mean, as I said, that whole deal where I had the attachments, but there was this one other time where I was at this place in Indiana called the Rhodes Hotel, where I actually had my head cracked open by something unseen.
At the Rhodes?
I'll give you the long. I'll give you the long and short of it. So, me and my buddy David Weatherly were going to stay at the Rhodes Hotel for a week and investigate it. We had talked, the old owner, Gail Sanchez, had contacted me, and we set it up, and we were going to stay there for a week, and live in it and investigated it. And we had a little event the first day where we it was me, David, and the Paris sisters, original Paris sisters. We did like a little speaking event, and we donated, had people bring in food and stuff, and we donated it to the local food shelter. And then we did a public investigation. Well, that night, so everybody was pretty much done investigating this stuff, and I had a live feed going on my YouTube channel back then, and everybody was downstairs, and we were upstairs. Now, this place was an old brothel ran by the Chicago mob, right? And here I am, ex-law enforcement, so just keep that in your mind. So we're upstairs, me and Weatherly. Everybody else is downstairs kind of watching the live feed. And he was in the main bathroom up there. Now, the upstairs was all the rooms where they kept all the girls. And he was in the bathroom, and I was filming him on the camera, and he was running a ghost box. Well, I walked in there to take a static meter to set down beside him, so in case anything happened and we could pick it up on that piece of equipment, we'd capture it on camera. And we were already getting some crazy responses on the box. So I went over there and I bent down to set this thing on the floor next to him, and I felt a wave of energy go through me, and it knocked me backwards a little bit, and I stumbled and I almost passed out. And I saw tunnel vision, the whole thing, and I kind of went backwards and leaned up against the wall. And he's like, "What happened?" And I said, "I don't know. I felt this wave of energy just go right through me." And I said, "It almost made me pass out." He's like, "You don't look right. You better go sit down." So I went back behind the camera. I had a chair back there, and I sat down. And the whole time I kept feeling like, as he's running the ghost box, like that cobweb sensation when you walk in one of them old basements and there's cobwebs and it gets on your head. That's what it felt like. And I kept wiping off my head, And so he's running with the ghost box, and he said, "What'd you do to Dave?" And you hear this growly, creepy voice say, "I hit him." Ha, 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 just like that.
Oh, holy wow.
And then he said, "Well, what'd you hit him with?" And it said, "A shovel." And anyway, it goes on and on. And then this thing starts calling. He asked, what is your name? Who are you? And he called himself Ian. This is what this spirit or entity was calling himself, said his name was Ian. So it started getting really like dark and more nasty, and saying it was going to kill me, kill you, pig, and all this stuff, because I'm ex-law enforcement, right? So it makes sense. We're in a brothel. It's ran by the mob at one point, and they don't like cops, obviously, and they're trying to kill me, right? So he decides to shut the ghost box down, and I'm feeling just horrible. I feel like I'm gonna throw up. I feel really nasty. So we go downstairs, and everybody's sitting there, and they're going, "Wow, that was crazy, man. This and that and the other." Well, I had that cobweb. I sat down with everybody, and I'm feeling really sick to my stomach, and I feel that cobweb sensation on my head. So I reach up there again, and lo and behold, I have this big knot on my head, and I'm bleeding. And
holy cats!
And I pull my hand down, and it's got blood on it. I'm like, "What the frick? I'm bleeding, and I got a big knot on my head." And everyone's freaking out, going, "Holy crap! We saw it on camera. You didn't fall down. You didn't hit your head on nothing. Holy crap!" And it was very, very unnerving to realize something was strong enough to punch through and knock a knot on my head and cut me. And that was a really, really just unnerving experience. So all said and done, everybody leaves for the night, a few hours later, and me and him are still left in this place for another 4 days. So, and there's a lot more to this whole investigation that we don't have time to go into, but so the very next day we're downstairs and I'm filming him again. And this Ian character, same voice, everything, starts coming through the ghost box again. And when that happened, he starts kind of giving this Ian character down the road. He's like, "Well, why'd you attack Dave? He didn't do anything to you, blah, blah, blah." And this thing goes, "Shut up or I'm going to slice you too," or something to that effect. Said, "I'm going to slice you." And so it's pretty cold out. It's the middle of winter. And Weatherly's got a long sleeve thermal shirt on, or Under Armour shirt, I don't remember which, with a t-shirt over top of that, and it's all tucked into his pants, and he's got a belt on, right? So within a few minutes after that happened, he starts saying, "Man, my back is on fire, man. My back is burning." And I said, "Don't do anything. Come straight over here to the camera." And he's on camera the whole time. And I pick up his shirt out of his pants. I pull it up out of his pants. And he has these massive 3 scratches from the top of his left shoulder all the way down his back, past his belt line, and they're just about to bleed. They're welted up. And here we are again for the second day in a row. This thing attacks him and is able to physically mark him. And then he becomes very ill, has to go outside. He's dry heaving and stuff. And he was on camera the whole time. And there's no way that he could have scratched himself in this manner to fake anything or anything. And he was on camera the whole time. So that happened there too. So that place was very, very dark in nature. A lot of stuff had, obviously who knows what all transpired in a brothel ran by the Chicago mob in the early 1900s, so, that was a very unnerving to realize, both of us were attacked and something was strong enough to physically mark our bodies and stuff like that. So,
well, yeah, that's crazy. I had no idea that the Rhodes Hotel was that kind of energy.
Well, we didn't either until we went there, so, and a lot of other bizarre things happened too during that investigation. But, from the minute we walked in there, we heard heavy footsteps upstairs. There's nobody there. She left the key for us and we let ourselves in. We checked the place. There was nobody in there. The footsteps went down the stairs and the front door opened, and there was snow on the ground and there was no tracks leading out anywhere. So that was another thing that happened. I mean, it was freaking crazy.
Well, was that, how long ago was that?
Oh man, that's been 4 or 5 years ago now, seems like.
Has it changed ownership since then?
Yeah.
Okay.
The guy that does the Lost Limbs Foundation has it now, I believe.
Yeah. So,
but there was a guy that Gail had running the place that was into. She found out later that he was into some type of satanic stuff, and he had dolls in there, and he's trying to conjure stuff in there and all kinds of stuff. So it may not even be related to the mob. It could be something else, but it made sense to me that here I am, retired law enforcement officer, and I got the mob attacking me, the ghosts of the mob or whatever. Yeah. So, and the things it was saying on the ghost box, led me to believe that was that. Now, that's not saying that it was not something else portraying it to be a member of the mafia or something like that, some spirit from the mafia. It could have been something else just acting like it was that, so.
Well, yeah, because they do like to,
they like to play games and throw you off and all that stuff, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a very, very crazy and just unnerving location that when we spent that much time in there and all that stuff happened.
Well, I can't even imagine. I get called names a lot, but I don't get physically attacked like that. So I actually do get called names, but I've gotten used to it, and and it's always the same word. And I just figure that, it's because I'm assertive and people of other generations aren't accustomed to that.
Right.
So I don't worry about it too much. I used to get my feelings hurt, but not so much. Now I just figure, you figured it out that quickly then. Yes. Okay. As long as we both know. And, it's just, sometimes it's funny because they'll laugh. And sometimes it's not so funny because they just get more serious about it. So, but I had been out for a while. I don't investigate when I'm sick or if there's anything wrong with me. I just don't. And I had pneumonia, an ongoing case of pneumonia 1 year. And my first time back, I was going to go take a picture for a book cover for two of my friends that had just written a book, and we were going to investigate a little area while we were out. And first time back, haven't investigated for over 3 months. Sit there and get the ghost box going, and we're having a conversation. And I said, well, yeah, it was a blue hole. I'd never seen a blue hole. So I was just like, this is so amazing. I can see why you're here. And boom, first thing out of the box was that word. And I was just like, oh, I don't think so. That was not nice. And, my whole team is just like laughing their heads off. And I was crushed and dismayed because I was so excited to be back, right? Yeah. And nothing had changed. But
I like to play games and be nasty sometimes.
Well, it's just so consistent. It's like, how do they all know? I swear there's like a coconut telegraph in the afterlife. So they all communicate.
In a sense of time, they're not governed by the laws of time like we are, and they can move at will and pretty much go anywhere they want. I think.
I think so too. That's the only thing I'm looking forward to about that is getting to see all the things I've never gotten to see, because I'm going to them all. And I am going to be the paranormal tourist. So, Taj Mahal, the Louvre, everything.
Oh, yeah.
So, let's see if I'm missing a question here. Dead air. Don't we love dead air? Okay, we did the protections. We did the attachments. We did the creepiest experience. And that, I've got to tell you, that is right at the top of the creepiest experience I've heard. Especially getting whacked with a shovel. Yeah.
Well, that's what he said he did it with. I mean, we can't confirm or deny it was a shovel, but it makes kind of perfect sense that he whacked me with a shovel because I had a knot on my head and a gash.
Yeah.
And I was bleeding. So, it is what it is. You can make of it what you want. That's just what happened.
Well, but I mean, it would be logical based on what he said. And we have had, and I posted it to you in our Skype, but we've had a page shared about spiritual and psychic attacks. It's an MIT.edu site, and I will put that on the Fate Mag radio page so that people can look at that too. So thank you, Beverly, for sharing that with us. And we are about to take our first break of this hour. So, excuse me. I hope that you enjoy it, and we will see you in just a few.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello, I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. I am Kat Hobson, your host, with my guest, Dave Spinks. And Dave, I am going to ask you, because we have got such interest flowing through here, to take us to Willow's Weep.
Okay.
I'm excited to have you share this because Sherry has just been chomping at the bit for it.
Okay, well, the story, my part of the story of Willow's Weep is I had heard about it through the paranormal grapevine from a friend of mine who heard about it from a group of guys known as Living Dead Paranormal who had investigated it. And they were saying, man, you got to go check this place out. This is back in 2013. And it's crazy, this and that. And, so I went with my friend back then and we checked it out. and got some pretty crazy stuff. And of course, had to go back because of the stuff we got, because we didn't feel like I had enough time, there. And so I went back again, and I did it with the original Parasisters, who were, I think they were the first paranormal team ever let in there, because the former owner, Brenda, wanted, she needed answers. She needed help as to, she had bought in this house to refurbish for her son, to help him get a start in life, And as soon as they started doing stuff, all this crazy paranormal activity started happening. Tools would turn on by themselves, not plugged in. Stuff would fly across the room. She was punched very violently in the stomach, so bad, in fact, that it bruised her spleen and liver. She had to go to the hospital because of it. The first night she led a paranormal group, or the first paranormal group in there, the first time she ever went in the house with a paranormal group. And all these crazy things started transpiring, and I went back with them and got even more evidence, and started finding out more history about the house, of all the deaths and stuff and craziness that happened in there. As of, as of this moment, of course, we know the last guy to live in it before Brenda bought it was Curtis, and he had shot himself in the head. His wife OD'd in the house. We don't know. I mean, the death certificate says she died at the hospital, but I have eyewitness reports that say they saw her being wheeled out of the house, not alive. They were not working on her. She was covered up. And then you go back even farther. There were numerous other deaths in the house. The original builder and his wife both died in the house. Then his son took it over. His name was Jesse Spinks. And Jesse had been previously married, and so did his current wife when they moved into that house. And they both had kids from previous marriages, and they had kids together. And altogether, they had 23 children. Well, long and short about old Jesse is that he was got in trouble for being a pedophile with one of his stepdaughters, and he was taken to court. I have all the court records on it, and he was found guilty and fined $700 and sent on his way. Well, old Jesse had a hard meeting with karma, because he went out to feed the hogs in the pen one day, because this used to be a big farm at one time, and he didn't come back. So they sent one of the older girls to go find him, and she found him in the hog pen being eaten alive by his own hogs. Well, as you can imagine, to her horror, she freaked out, and she went and got help, and they drugged Jesse back into the house with his intestines and stuff hanging out. Oh. One of his ankles was eaten off, his ear was eaten off, and his privates were eaten off, where he bled out and died in the house, as the story goes. I have an actual newspaper article on that. So you have several deaths associated with the house. Another bizarre aspect, and there's a ton of research still to be done on this house. Another bizarre aspect is it's built pretty much in the exact shape of a cross. Mm-hmm. Originally, it had 4 entrances and exits. And then later years, they added a kitchen area onto it and another back porch area and a bathroom. But in the original building, it had a summer kitchen in the back. Didn't have running water in the house or anything until many years later. So, and it was built in 1890, and directly in front of the house, the town used to be called Springfield, Indiana, but it was changed for whatever reason to Cayuga, and it sets right on the line where it's in Cayuga, but just literally feet down the road, it's Eugene. So there's, some weird stuff that happened there. And then directly in front of the house, there's a crossroads. So if you follow the old legend of the crossroads that, sell your soul to the devil for the crossroads, at the crossroads to be rich and famous or whatever. So you have that weird aspect. Not saying that happened there, but that's really weird that there's a crossroads directly in front of the house. Right. Then you have, we know that water is a huge paranormal conductor. There's 2 rivers that flow into that town, and there's a huge aquifer under that town as well. And then there's all these other aspects. The whole area is ancient Native American burial grounds. There's mounds everywhere. And then the more modern tribes that we know of had numerous battles in that whole area with French settlers when they came in. And so you've got all that. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So supposedly, and I haven't confirmed this yet, but that's the word, and I trust Brenda's word, the chair that was in the house that they found Curtis in is still in the house with his blood on it. I still have to do some testing on that chair to make sure it is indeed human blood. If it is human blood, then pretty much 100% that's his chair. But we got to follow up on that. There's also many attacks that occurred to Brenda and her family in the house during renovations, and the maintenance man. She sent a maintenance guy, a local guy that still lives in the town today, under the house to check the pipes for her son, so if they had to do any pipe work, they could do it. So he crawls under there. There's these strange mounds of dirt under the house. So he has to push the mounds of dirt away from, so he can crawl over to the pipe area. And as he's doing this, a bone pops out of one of the mounds of dirt. He grabs the bone and says, "Holy crap, that's a human bone." And as this happens, he says he's attacked violently in a sexual nature by something unseen. And he said it took everything he had to fight his way out from the crawl space and get out of there. He runs out of there, hands the bone to Brenda, and says, "I'm never going under that effing house again."
Wow.
And that's one thing that happened to that poor guy. Another time, him and Brenda were painting, and it's a high topped house. And here's something really bizarre too about the house. In the original home plans, there's supposed to be a staircase going to the upstairs. Well, there's no staircase, and there's only one. The only window in the upstairs to the attic area is one window in the back, and that's the only way you can get in the attic. Is you got to take the whole window frame out and crawl in there.
Oh my gosh!
Really bizarre. And
that is bizarre.
So they were painting up in that area on the outside of the house, and they had to pull a truck up to put the ladder in the back so they could get high enough to paint it. Well, he's up there painting, and Brenda's holding the ladder. And next thing she knows, he screams out, and the ladder goes flying backwards, and he falls about 20 feet, landing flat on his back. And she's like, "What happened?" And he said, "I saw an old woman come flying out of the house at me, saying, 'Get the F out of my house.' And she shoved the ladder back." And so that happened to him. And then there's this whole other aspect about the willow tree. The willow tree in the front yard is sacred to Native Americans, number one.
Right.
And the story goes with that, you don't touch the willow tree because bad things will happen. Because one day Brenda's working in the yard and some of her friends pull up and she sees them. So she walks up there, starts talking to them. And she starts telling them a story about how the same guy, the maintenance guy who was mowing the grass for her, gets over by the willow tree. And she says, I don't want you cutting no limbs on the willow tree because it's real pretty and stuff like that. Don't mess with it. Well, she goes back around the back of the house and keeps doing whatever she's doing. And then she hears the mower stop for quite a while. So she goes back to check on him, and he's laying on the side of the front porch, just moaning and groaning in pain. She said, "What happened?" He said, I cut a few branches off the willow tree because it was in my way. And I couldn't get the mower around it. And I got back on the mower, started riding, and something threw me off. And he landed on the side of the porch, and he actually fractured his back.
Oh, my gosh.
So, she's telling this story to her friends, and there's two brothers in the front seat and their friend in the back seat, and they're like, we don't believe in that crap. So they snatch a limb off of the willow tree and throw it in the dashboard and go running down the road in the car. Well, she gets a call about an hour later and finds out that they got in a fist fight in the front seat of the car. They go flipping off the side of the road into a graveyard, and all three of them have to be life flighted out. None of them died, but they were really tore up really bad. So
that's crazy.
You can say it's coincidental, you can say whatever, but it happened. So so as all this is going on, and there's so much here, so Brenda takes the bone that the man gave her to have, find out what's going on, takes it to the local doctor there and says, the guy found this under my house. What is this, a human bone? And he looks at it for a minute and says, "Oh yeah, it's definitely it's a child's arm bone." And he said, "Where'd you find it now?" And she said, "Well, I sent the guy helping me work on the house under the crawl space, and he found it under there. And what do I do with it?" So he said, supposedly he called the local sheriff. The sheriff told him, "Well, we'll take the doc's word for it," because the doc said it looked pretty old. and they told her to either put it back where you found it or, just get rid of it, which I thought was highly unusual because normally, you find a piece of a human bone, you're going to do an investigation.
Well, yeah.
And not only that, so as they're doing, so when Brenda gets the house for her son, one of the first things they do is they had the previous people that lived there someone had put a laminate floor over the old original floor, and it was kind of hooved up from moisture, right? So they said, well, we got to tear that up and, do new flooring. So as they're tearing up that stuff, they find this weird pamphlet book buried between the old floor and the new floor in the corner of the house. And on the front of that pamphlet, it says, "Is the spirit world real?" And it's got an upside down pentagram in flames around it. And it talks about necromancy and summoning the dead and all this bizarre stuff. But here's the real kicker. It's put out by the so-called Church of God, but it's not a real, I do some research on it. It was printed in 1985. And I do some research on this so-called sect of the Church of God. And what it is, it's really more like a cult that is masquerading as Christians, getting people to come into their, whatever cult they got going on there. And the people that are really, really bizarre and stuff. So also under the house in the dead center, picture the cross in your mind, the dead center cross, there is dug under the house that's surrounded in granite rock, and there's some ashes in it. So somewhere at some time or another, someone's been down there burning stuff, and there's no doubt with that pamphlet being in that house that somebody was either dabbling in witchcraft or doing something they shouldn't have been doing. I feel that they probably opened up some kind of doorway or portal, and there's all kinds of stuff coming through. Now, I also got some emails. Brenda got some emails from people over the years that saying, everyone talked about this house over the years, how it was super haunted. This old woman had lived in it. And I got an email from her grandson confirming this, that she told him stories when she lived there, that the rocking chair would rock all by itself all the time. And, she was old school, so she would after dinner and stuff, she would wash all the dishes and set the table for breakfast in the morning, which is my grandma did the same thing,
Right.
And she would come out in the morning and there'd be dishes all over the floor, stuff all disheveled and stuff. And there was nobody in the house that would have done that. And she said, she told her grandson that used to happen at that house all the time. Now, the original builder, that it was said that he was into some weird stuff, that he was a postman or a postmaster, and he had come from Ohio. And when he originally built that place and everything, and the old woman that used to live next door to the house, she's now deceased. Brenda got to meet and talk with her several times before she died. And she told Brenda that she was in her upper 90s, and she was so old that her parents knew the original builders. Okay. So she was telling her all about, Mom said that this guy was into some weird stuff and bizarre stuff, right? So he built that house for a purpose. There was 4 entrances and exits, and that was and then there's points coming out above. It built into the structure of the house that were above each door. There was 4 entrances and exits. There's 4 points built in triangles above each one of those doors. Now, all those doors over the years have been closed except for one, the front door, and a little porch was added on. But the original structure is still there. They've just been closed up, or little rooms have been added on, which is really bizarre. So they say he built that to funnel energy in and out, which makes sense, right?
Right.
Well, I had a team in there recently, and the guy happened to be a 32nd degree Mason. And during the investigation, he calls me up and he said, "Dave, that house is full of Masonic symbology, right?" And I was like, "Well, I kind of thought some of that, but I'm not, I wasn't sure because I don't know all that stuff." And he's like, "Dude, let me tell you." And he started taking pictures and sending it to me. And come to find out, the builder and the owner were most likely Masons, and they built, and he said, "See the way these are turned right here?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "That is because in the old days, they would turn them different ways so it would fool non-Masons to think, if they were looking at it, they wouldn't know what they were looking at, because it was to fool people that weren't Masons to not know that those are Masonic symbols." He said, "There's Masonic sigils all over this house." he said the 4 points coming out over the doors are Masonic. Anything that is a 3-sided triangle like that is definitely Masonic. So that's something else new.
Did you say symbols or sigils?
Sigils and symbols are in that house.
Oh my goodness.
So, and the old school, the high Masons are into some stuff. They do some stuff. So, now, like I said, whether someone was killed and buried under the house, we don't know yet. I got to get ground penetrating radar in there and get some people in there and know what they're doing on that, and some forensic people. For all we know, the house was either built on top of a Native American burial ground or a graveyard, or somebody was killed and buried under the house. Could have been, maybe it was something to do with Jesse Sykes. He could have been molesting kids or his own daughters, or they buried, who knows what happened. Somebody died.
There's no telling. I mean,
so there's all kinds of stuff.
That creep factor is huge.
Yeah, so you got all of that for starters. So over the years, as Brenda was trying to find out what in the heck was causing all this stuff, I was in the house investigating in numerous other groups, capturing some phenomenal, it's the whole gamut. You've got people that have caught full-blown shadow figures on camera and video. You've got pictures of entities and spirits in the house. I've got numerous videos. When all this stuff would happen to Brenda, she would lock the house up for months at a time and not let nobody in, right? Well, she put up security cameras, and she put those big plastic balls you can buy at like different stores and stuff, that the big plastic ones, and she would just set them around the house. And there's videos of these balls rolling around like something's playing, not just rolling in one direction, but they're rolling around in different directions like something is playing with it. And I've got numerous videos of that. I've got doors opening and shutting on their own. Now, the thing with the doors in this house, the doors are 10 feet tall. And also, I forgot to tell you about those triangular structures that are built over each door. When she was renovating, she discovered there was a false ceiling because they were looking for that stairwell. They're like,
right, the one to go up.
And they started poking holes in the ceiling, and there, lo and behold, there was a 4-foot false ceiling, and those were where those triangles were discovered. So those were directly covered up for some reason, not for people to see. You know what I'm saying? So
I do.
You got all that going on, and the doors are the original floors and doors are still in the house, and you got to picture a cross in your mind. It's a perfect cross, let me tell you.
It is a perfect cross. I've looked at it.
Yeah. So each arm of the cross. Inside the house, there's doors, and those are the rooms. Okay. And there's big 10-foot double doors, and you open them up, and they're spring loaded. They're really old. They're from the original building time, heavy duty wood, and they've got real heavy duty springs. So folks were saying, well, those doors are spring loaded. So if the spring lets loose, well, let me tell you, Brenda put probably 10, 15 pound rocks in front of those doors. And I've got video of them doors opening by themselves with the rocks behind them on the floor.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so, I'm gonna have to stop you because we have to take our break, but we will be right back to continue this.
Yeah.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition,
bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. I'm Kat, your host, with my guest Dave Spinks, and I had to interrupt him so that we could take that break. But Dave, you were describing Willow's Weep, and the whole thing is just bizarre. But before we go any further, I wanted to let people know that they can get in touch with you. Your website is Dave Spinks, paranormalinvestigator.com.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually video of there's all kinds of stuff on this website. Y'all are going to love it. I have had the best time playing. But you can find out where he's going to be appearing. You can learn about his books. You can learn about the Society of the Supernatural, which we haven't even touched on. I'm telling you, we've got at least 3 shows here. But seriously, you've done so much stuff. But, again, Dave Spinks, paranormalinvestigator.com. And they can find your books on Amazon as well as your site, right?
Yes, or they can get signed copies directly from me, or when I'm at events, you can always come and get signed copies of the book at the events too, of any of the books.
Well, I think that one of the things that I like, I had not realized that I've actually interviewed several members of the Society of the Supernatural, so I think that's kind of neat. How did you come to form that group?
Me and David Weatherly wanted to form a group of people that were kind of, very seasoned, people that have been around for a long time doing what they do in their different specialties, or like us that do a little bit of everything. And he kind of came up with a really good idea to model it after the old 1800s London Ghost Club,
yes,
in a sense. So,
he's so interesting.
And it was a brilliant idea. We didn't want your run of the mill group. Basically the way we modeled it was kind of like that. People that have been around a long time that have a vast experience level, and the way we do it is like when we come together, we try to do events and stuff as Society of the Supernatural. And if we help each other out, we promote each other. And we also, if I have a question about something that I don't know about as much, I could reach out to him or whoever whatever that particular question was, and Rosemary was a big part of that.
Yes.
She's phenomenal lady, jack of all trades in the paranormal, written well over 70 books and countless magazine
and fearless.
Yeah, and just a fire plug of a lady, and we loved her to death. And it was a great honor to me. I didn't know Rosemary that long, only a couple of years, and I got to be good friends with her. And she wrote the forward to
yes.
She wrote the forward to my Real West Virginia Hauntings book and everything, and it was a real, she was really coaching me along, because I don't fancy myself as a writer at all. I'm still learning. It's a very difficult process for me I'm writing as a law enforcement. I'm trying to write reports, and it's not. You gotta get out of that situation when you're writing books. But she told me, her and David Weatherly both said, man, you got a ton of material. You need to get that out there, man. So, I took their advice, and that's what I've been doing with it. And it was a real pleasure and honor knowing her and having her as an inspiration and a mentor, so to speak, as far as writing goes, and her knowledge base is just phenomenal. You can ask her about anything. And Weatherly's the same way. You know, when I have questions,
Yes.
that's who I go to is David Weatherly. He's been around doing this stuff for 40 years, even longer than me. So, you know, and he's a plethora of knowledge, man. I mean, the guy he knows something about everything. So, you know, then we have Eric Altman. You know, he's been in the cryptid world for a long, long time. Barry Gaunt, you know, Bear's been around the MUFON circles for a very long time. He does a little bit of everything too. And we got Kristen Lee, owner of the Blair House, and Ross Allison, who's a big time up in Seattle. He's been around for a long, long time, does the college circuits, you know, lecturing, and he's written a few books himself, and a very knowledgeable person in the paranormal. So we have a really good group of people, you know, that come together to form Society of the Supernatural, and, you know, that's the whole basis of it.
Well, you know, it's funny because I did not know that Barry was a member of it.
Oh, yeah. Barry's a member.
And I did know about you, David, Ross, Rosemary, and Eric.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Bear is somebody that I so admire.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I
great guy, man.
Yeah, and I interviewed him recently. And then I also was recently at Octagon Hall. So
oh, yeah.
I just love that place. Oh, my goodness.
Me and founded the group. And we were, bringing in like-minded people who've been around for a long time. So
you made some good choices.
Oh, yeah.
You made some great choices. And, you know, there's not a person there that I would not consider a go-to for information for any question I may have. So, congratulations on putting together such a great group of people.
Yeah, and we've had that for several years now, like 3-4 years, I think.
2015, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
and we're, we'll probably be adding some more people. Of course, we're very selective in that, and Rosemary obviously is irreplaceable in that.
Yes, she is.
But I always encourage folks. You want to read some really good stuff, check out Rosemary. Any one of her books is just phenomenal. David's books are phenomenal, and
yours aren't shabby. Just tossing that out there.
Appreciate it. I'm getting there. I mean, I got a lot of learning to do when it comes to the writing process, but I do have great content and a lot of experiences to share. And, that's the whole goal, is to get it out there, because listen, all these TV shows and all these reality shows, guess what? One day those won't be there anymore, but the books always will be there. And
well, the books will. And, even through an apocalypse, you will still find books.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so that's what we're doing with all that, and we all get together when we can. I think we're gonna shoot for a Society of Supernatural event at Octagon Hall this year. So
well, I'm there.
Yeah, I hope you.
If I'm not at an event, I'm there.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be a good one. You won't want to miss that.
No. Well, that would be pretty cool. Maybe we could.
I'll be on a new show on travel coming up anytime this first quarter. I don't have the dates when it's going to air. It's part of the Josh Gates lineage, Destination X, I think it's going to be called. Don't know for sure. Don't quote me on that, but I will be on that and another show later that I cannot talk about at this time. So
that's so frustrating. You can't talk about them.
Well, I don't want to myself because I've already. I mean, the go ahead's already there. I just got to get it filmed and then wait till it gets closer to being out. So you don't want to speak too soon before it's going to air. So
well, absolutely. And I just think that's cool.
Another new movie about the Flatwoods Monster that I'm in, supposed to be out this year too as well. So,
that's part of the Small Town Monsters, isn't it?
No, it's a different company on this one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
that's such an interesting experience, though.
Oh yeah. Well, I was born right down the road from that, and that's why Seth used me. I'm a local guy, and I grew up hearing all these stories from friends and relatives, and my mom's first cousins, my second cousins, they went to school with those boys, and they were scared to death that they didn't even want to walk home from school or nothing. And back in those days, most people around West Virginia had outhouses. They weren't rich enough to have running plumbing in the house and stuff, and when they would use the restroom, they had to go out to the outhouse, and I just talked to my mom's cousin. It was a few months ago about it, and she was telling me how she got her butt whipped many times because she was so scared of the Flatwoods Monster. She didn't want to go to that house, so she got caught peeing off the porch and stuff.
Oh, so, I could see that, though. That was a scary experience that was shared everywhere.
That was 1952, in the heat of a massive UFO wave over the east coast of the United States, and West Virginia was smack dab in the middle of it. I talk a lot about it in my new book, Real West Virginia UFOs. Please grab yourself a copy of that if you're into ufology, because it's all about West Virginia and West Virginia's connection to modern ufology. I think it'll open a lot of people's eyes on exactly the sheer number of sightings that happen here in the Mountain State, and a lot of other connections here in the Mountain State with modern ufology. Tons of accounts, unreal accounts here. Whole gamut.
And if you haven't seen West Virginia, even today, then you can absolutely understand how that could be once you do, because it's beautiful rolling hills. It's one of the prettiest places I've ever been, but there is nothing there.
Yeah, and that...
and it's crazy.
Melissa Kennedy from BMK Publishing down in Florida, who runs UFO Con, published that book for me. And also the first Willow's Week book is out and available. That was put out, published by Starborn Illumination, my good friend Jenny Flack, that owns the Synergy Springs Soul Center up in PA, published that for me. And I've got at least 2 more books coming about Willow's Week, because there's just so much stuff that's left undiscovered about the Weep. It's a whole, I think the Weep is a whole journey that needs to be taken. I want to take it full circle. And we're going to cleanse that place at some point and get it taken care of, because I believe there's an open portal there that all kinds of stuff is coming in and out of. And there's a lot of stuff that I haven't discussed in depth. There was another woman who spent a lot of time there who was an active law enforcement officer. And she made a connection with me right after I bought the house, and we were discussing. She had a bunch of stuff to give me, and she had a completely different take on Willow's Weep than anyone else. And she said it had to do with ETs, and they were bad ETs and this and that. And they were coming through this doorway there. They were conjured there somehow, which, could lead us back to the whole Masonic thing.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. She goes, I just moved. Let me find all my stuff. And I said, well, that's fine. I got an event and I'll be back next week. So we'll talk next week. So I come back, and I hadn't heard from her for a few days, waiting to hear from her. So I go to her Facebook page to message her and find out she died.
Yeah.
Of unknown circumstances. I mean, to me, there's no coincidence. Something happened. Something went down. I don't know. I mean, and she was a well-respected member of the paranormal community, Michelle Fitzpatrick. I mean, and I talk about it in the first book too. I mean, I dedicated that book to her and another good friend, Ken Doc Head is his name. He was a doctor and really good person, and he died suddenly on us too. There's a lot of paranormal people dying, folks. I don't know what's going on, but it's just weird. I mean, it's weird. So, it could be coincidence, but when I look at the whole Michelle thing, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make sense at all. And Barry was good friends with her too, so we still can't wrap our minds around that. So, a lot of stuff to be searched out and found out about this Weep house. I bought it because there's no other house I've ever come across or even heard of that has the history of that this house does. It has all the bizarre stuff, not to mention the hundreds of investigators that have been in this house before I ever owned it that captured phenomenal paranormal evidence in it. So, you know, I bought it to make it my own paranormal lab and share it with the community so we can try to further the field of hauntings and what goes on during these hauntings and what's causing them. That's the whole purpose that I bought this house, and that's what I'm doing with it.
Well, I'm so glad that you did, and that this is what you're using it for. And we're out of time. I can't believe we're out of time. This has been such a great conversation, Dave. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Anytime. Let's do it again. We got plenty more to talk about.
We have so much more to talk about. Well, we will. We'll schedule something. And the people in our chat rooms have enjoyed you so much. So, and great questions, by the way. Thank y'all.
Yeah, great questions. Anytime you want to message me something, just get on my website, and there's a place on there that says report a sighting. And you can also email me on that too with any questions or experiences you want to share. I'm always open. I get back to you as soon as I can. As you might imagine, I'm very busy with various projects and whatnot. So I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can, but I always get back to folks when they message me.
Well, I am so appreciative because I'm going to be sending you questions and stuff. But thanks again. And for everyone listening, thank you so much because you know what? You're the reason we do this. And I appreciate every one of you. If you're going out and about, as we're all going to have to do a little bit, unless you're taking this week off for the holiday, just be the person you want to be the change you want to see, and, you know, be somebody that you'd like to have for a friend. We can manifest good in this world. It's what we do. We have that power. So let's do it. Make the world a better place. No grousing. Just do it. Thank y'all so much. We will be back. And we are not doing live shows through this week because of the holiday. I am going to be back live on Sunday with a new Fate Mag radio for you. And then Denise will return on Monday with Paranormal Pride. And I will be back that following Wednesday with Paranormal Experienced Radio. And we'll have a new Ghost Talk radio for you as well. So thank you so much. Check you next time. Have a great holiday and be safe out there. Good night.
Warning, the following message does not necessarily reflect the views of WBHM-DB or its hosts, guests, listeners, or of any functioning adult in general. In fact, Frank should probably seek professional help. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi there, Frank Lee here. I thought that I would spend a few moments telling you about the positivity from the network here. The overall message of para-unity and happiness, and how everyone here wants to get along with everyone out there, and how everything is just wonderful. Wait, Cat's not looking. Okay, I've got something to really tell you. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what's really going on. Honestly, all that being nice and positive crap was kind of hurting my soul, as dark as it is. So, what's really happening. You see it all the time. Everybody and their brother out there has a paranormal team because they watch a couple of episodes of Ghost Hunters or some crap like that. So they go and they spend half their mortgage payment on tools and things that light up that they don't understand. And then the next logical step after buying matching black t-shirts and posing like 90s rappers for their Facebook page is to, of course, have their own podcast. Well, you know what? You're not going to find that crap here. What we have here at WBHM Digital Broadcasting is the best host, the best guest, bringing you real information. All of the hosts here on this network know their stuff. They are the people who have been out there doing the work, doing actual research. And no, by research, I don't mean binge watching some kind of cheesy TV show on Netflix. I mean reading books. I mean out in the field doing the legwork. And who are they interviewing on their shows? They're bringing you the people they have learned from. They're bringing you the best in the field, covering all kinds of topics from UFOs and aliens to Bigfoot to cryptozoology to ghosts to anything you can think of a bit strange and unexplained. It is here, and you're going to get the best information here. So stay tuned to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Don't go anywhere. Speaking of going somewhere, I've got to go before my mic gets cut. We'll see you there on WBHM-DB.